Natasha and Her Illegitimate Child in a Muslim Society. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. Book 1. This is an intriguing epic story which resonates with love, resilience, courage, and sacrifice. Before we dive into the tapestry of the story, I would like to inform the reader this novel is narrated in 2 books. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs for a review to be printed in a public newspaper, general magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the real life of a Muslim family. All names, characters, places, and events are either the product of the author's imagination or used literary. Therefore, any resemblance to real people, living or dead, events or locales is merely coincidental. Chapter 16. The Execution of the Adulterous Girl. While the dispute between those 2 rival wives was going on in the Calgary city in Canada, Natasha Sami Shams Al-Din in the city of Khartoum in Sudan had completed her 9 months of pregnancy and delivered a baby girl inside the women's prison. Shortly after the trial of honor was conducted and she was found guilty of adultery and sentenced to 200 lashes, Natasha was placed under arrest and sent to a maximum security women's prison. During those 3 months of imprisonment, her father did not leave a stone unturned to stop his daughter from being flogged 200 stripes. He appealed to her case many times, but his pleas were rejected by all courts. He even referred his appeals to the criminal court and the high court. Both courts rejected his petitions. According to the Supreme Court, the decision of the Sharia court is final and irrevocable. When he failed to change the decision of the Sharia court through appealing to the criminal court and Supreme Court, Sami Shams Al-Din begged the president of Sudan to intervene and save the life of his only daughter. Mr. President apologized and told him that he would not interfere in the judicial matters, especially when the decision of the Islamic court is backed by a verse from the Holy Quran. When all doors were closed on his face, the desperate father sought the intervention of some international human rights organizations. The Human Rights Watch office in the city of Juba in South Sudan tried to intervene and save the life of the condemned 17-year-old girl, but the Sharia court rejected its request. In the meantime, the case of Natasha became internationally known all over the world. Many foreign groups tried to intervene, but all their interventions were rejected. At this junction, the Minister of Religious Affairs stepped in and backed the decision of the Islamic Sharia court. When all efforts were exhausted, some international human rights groups proposed to redeem Natasha Sami Shams Al-Din with whatever amount of money the Sharia court would ask for. They offered to pay $1,000 for each lash. Despite that huge amount of money, the judge of the Sharia court refused to revoke his decision. When he was interviewed by the Al Jazeera TV, the religious judge said he would not sell the judgment of Allah and His Prophet, which mentioned in the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Nur 24, verse 2, even if those foreigners are prepared to pay $1 million for each whip. The police allowed Sami Shams Al-Din to claim the custody of Natasha's baby and subjected her to the most brutal kind of punishment ever being done to a mortal being. Natasha had been flogged 200 lashes shortly after the day she delivered her baby girl. On the day of her execution, the prison authority stripped her of her upper clothes and tied her body to a black post. Her hands and legs were securely tied up. Then 2 female executioners began to whip her delicate body until they rendered her unconscious. Every strike cut her delicate skin like a sharp sword and made a deep injury in her flesh. She was screaming at the top of her voice while those whips were beating her back and causing hundreds of cuts. She lost her consciousness after the whip number 50th. Though the 2 female executioners knew that Natasha had died at the whip number 70th, still the prison authority ordered them to continue flogging her dead body. The prison authority based its decision on the example of the second caliph, Omar ibn al-Khattab, who flogged his drunk son to death. Although the son died at the whip number 80th, still Omar continued to flog the dead body of his son until he completed 100 stripes according to the Sharia. For that reason, Omar ibn Khattab was known among Muslims as the justest judge that ever walked on the surface of the earth after the Prophet Muhammad. That is why he had been nicknamed Omar al-Faruq, which means Omar the most just judge. Natasha's execution has been carried out in a public place near Khobar prison and aired live through all TV channels in Sudan and witnessed by thousands of Muslim believers. After the heartbroken Sami Shams al-Din had been deprived of his beloved Russian wife Nadia and his adorable daughter Natasha, which one was slain in honor killing, and the second was murdered by the Sharia court, he decided to leave Sudan forever. In his heart, he began to hate everything pertaining to that accursed country. He hated Islam and considered it a barbaric, cruel, terrorizing, and criminal religion. Islam for him became an abomination and satanic cult. Consequently, the deeply hurt man took his granddaughter, who is a few days old, and traveled to Ethiopia. Although he did not have much money and knew nobody in that country, Sami Shams al-Din still preferred to live in a strange land where those draconian Sharia laws are not applicable. Before he left Sudan, Sami named his granddaughter after her late mother, Natasha, and gave her his last family name. Chapter 17. Sexual Predation. After he forsook his two rival wives, Duriya and Maria, Yasser Sef al-Dawla began to harass white women. Being from the north of Sudan, he has the inferiority complex of the northern Arab Sudanese who worship white skin. Although most of the northern Sudanese are having darkish skin and African features, still, they believe that they are Arabs. Some northern tribes such as the Shajia and the Ja'aliya believe that they are direct descendants of the Prophet Muhammad. From day one, the Muslim immigrant Yasser began to lust after white skin and is longing to have a white girl as wife number 4. He knows that all the women he impregnated are Sudanese and have black skins. To achieve his goal, he began to roam in the stores and malls and travel by public transportation, seeking a new white prey so he could devour her white flesh. His favorite spot is traveling in buses that are crowded by the Calgary University students. Many times, he purposely leaned on a white girl standing on the bus or sat near a woman sitting by herself. His behavior irritated many white women and sometimes made them confront him in front of other passengers. But he always used his lack of knowledge of English as an excuse. Some white women took seriously his improper acts and reported him to the police authority. When the number of complaints against him increased, the police of Calgary decided to deal with him. All the complainers gave the same descriptions of the immigrant man who is targeting public transportation and sexually harassing women. To catch him red-handed, the police sent a female police officer in civilian dress. In that way, the Canadian police tricked the sexual predator and caught him in the very act of sexually harassing a white policewoman. He leaned and touched that white police officer on her buttocks by his fully erected phallus. When Yasser Sef al-Dawla got arrested and thrown behind bars, the Arab Muslim Sudanese community accused the police of Calgary of racial discrimination. They took the matter to the immigration office and demanded that Yasser should be released as soon as possible. The president of the Sudanese community, Dr. Noor al-Huda, argued that if Yasser was suffering from sexual mania, he would not have left his two women and remained single to bring peace between the two rival Sudanese communities. Further, he said the undercover young policewoman had purposely put on an exceedingly sexy short pants, which revealed her big buttocks and half-exposed breasts, and tempted Yasser by standing in front of him. Every young immigrant man who had come from strict society as Sudan, where the woman cannot show even her hands and feet, would be sexually tempted and get sexually aroused, and his penis became erected when such a hot young policewoman stood in front of him and showed him her breasts and large buttocks. Somehow, the immigration office found the arguments of the former professor Noor al-Huda convincing and hence requested the police authority to waive the charges of sexual harassment from Yasser Sef al-Dawla and grant him another chance. The police agreed to release Yasser, but warned him that he would face severe punishment if he were involved again in similar improper behaviors. Yasser Saif al-Dawla spent a couple of weeks in jail before he was released. He learned a good lesson from that short time he spent in jail. It is the first time in his life to be thrown behind bars. When some of the white inmates somehow came to know that his charge is related to women's sexual harassment and abuse, they mercilessly battered the shit out of him and left him half dead. The truth of the matter is that Yasser is like many Muslim immigrants who came to the West with some erroneous notions that white women are free and easy to take them to bed and have sex with them. When he was in Sudan, he heard that white people practice sex in the streets and public parks. Additionally, he heard that white girls are not controlled by their families, as the case of Muslim women in the Muslim world. The white girls could have boyfriends with the knowledge of their parents and could sleep with them before marriage without the fear of honor killings. The girls in the West could leave their parents' houses, live with their lovers, and have sex with them out of wedlock. Giving birth to the Wad Haram or Bint Haram isn't a crime punishable by the law. A girl could conceive and deliver an illegitimate child and give it to her parents to raise it up. As a matter of fact, Yasser heard that 99% of white people are illegitimate children who were born without marriage bonds. Having those wrong notions in his mind about white people, Yasser went from public place to another place searching for a free white woman to take to bed. But his first experience in Canada taught him a hard lesson that he supposed not to forget all his life. In Sudan, in a short time, he was able to cheat and impregnate 4 women. He was officially and legally fornicating with 3 of them in the name of the Islamic polygamous marriages. So, the child rapist and notorious womanizer understood that white women are more difficult to get than Muslim women. The quick release of Yasser Saif al-Dawla from prison has created a kind of reciprocal friendship between him and the president of the Arab Sudanese Association. Dr. Noor al-Huda took advantage of that friendship and convinced Yasser to take his daughter, Duriya, because according to the Sharia she is still his lawful wife. Yasser followed the advice of his father-in-law and reclaimed his second wife. When Yasser took his second wife back, Duriya has only 1 month left for her 6 months visiting visa to Canada to expire. To extend her stay or keep her permanently in Canada, some people suggested to Yasser to impregnate his Muslim wife Duriya, and that might force the immigration office to grant her a landed immigrant visa. Believing such a story, Yasser made his second wife pregnant again. Then he approached the immigration office and presented the case of his pregnant wife. He told the immigration office that Duriya is his lawful wife and has been impregnated by him. But Yasser did not know that by doing that he put Duriya in an insurmountable problem. First, the immigration office knew that Yasser Saif al-Dawla did not officially divorce his Christian wife Maria, and hence it is illegal for him to marry another woman while he is still lawfully bound by another marriage. The office refused to recognize the marriage certificate that Duriya brought with her from Sudan. The officials of the immigration office are aware of the 2 rival wives' dispute and what happened after the representatives of the 2 Sudanese communities met in their office. It is clear to them that Yasser purposely impregnated Duriya to force the immigration office to grant her a landed immigrant visa. Many immigrants from the Third World use that kind of tricks, but the Immigration Authority stopped such abuse of the immigration law. Just to mention a few examples, Egyptian immigrants in Toronto used to bribe prostitutes and street girls and send them to Egypt to marry their brothers and bring them as spouses to Canada. But their marriages were only on papers and there would be no sex involved. Worse than that, some Indians used to marry their own aunties and sometimes their own sisters to bring them to Canada. The immigration office in Calgary City refused to recognize Yasser's second marriage and kicked Duriya out of the country as soon as her 6 months visit was over. Consequently, his second wife Duriya, Noor al-Huda, returned to Sudan with 1 child in her hands and another baby inside her womb. Shortly after his Muslim wife returned to Sudan, Yasser reclaimed back his third wife Maria. As before, The selfish man did not take his Christian wife Maria back because he loves her or missing her, but because she found a nice job and began to earn a good income. She is employed by a factory and gets paid high wages. She works during the night. She worked from 10 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. By that time, Maria had delivered her baby girl. She named her daughter, Susan, after the name of her deceased mother. Although he is jobless, Yasser refused to babysit his newborn daughter. As a Muslim man, Yasser believes that washing dishes, cleaning the house, doing the laundry, cooking food, and taking care of the children are duties of the wife. In the Muslim world, the husband will never enter the kitchen. It will be considered a big shame if the man makes tea to himself or for his wife. For that reason, Maria took 6 months maternity leave. After she returns to work, Maria is forced to send her baby girl every night to her cousin who agreed to babysit the infant for a little money. Having no work to do and little cash in his hands, Yasser learned another dirty habit. Some single Sudanese boys in Calgary showed him the place where he could find white prostitutes. He is told he can find a 13 or 14 years old white girl to sleep with him for just a few dollars. He has no driver's license, and he might take years before he could learn to read and write in English. He always asks those boys to help him pick up a hooker in their car and bring her to his apartment. While Maria is working hard to make money to feed him and put some pocket money in his hands, Yasser is going around with those bad Sudanese boys and picking up teenage girls from the streets and bring them to his apartment and fornicate with them in Maria's bed. It did not stop at that, but Yasser Sef al-Dawla learned to drink alcohol and smoke marijuana with those useless Sudanese boys. Most of those boys are jobless like Yasser and milking the system through the welfare program. Chapter 18. Brittany. Yasser's obsession for small girls and excessive love for white skin led him finally to have a relation with a 14-year-old white girl. The girl is known as Brittany Johnson. He met her in the apartment of one of his Sudanese friends. She came with her 16-year-old friend, Kelly. Kelly is having a kind of beneficial relationship with a young Sudanese boy. Those two girls were in the streets before they met Yasser and his friend. After they met them, the two girls began to depend on them to meet the expenses of feeding their bad habits of alcohol drinking and smoking. Yasser and his friend spent generously on those two girls, thinking that they became their girlfriends. Sometimes, Yasser was led to steal expensive things from his apartment and sell them to have more money to spend on his 14-year-old girlfriend. Brittany Johnson was born and brought up in Edmonton City, but she ran away from home when she was 13 years old and came to Calgary City. From the time she came to Calgary, she had been involved in gang activities. To get money to meet the expenses of her smoking, alcohol drinking, and taking drugs, she was forced by the gang to stand in the streets and sell her body. But after she met her street friend Kelly, who took her to Yasser's friend's apartment, Brittany stopped standing in the streets. She moved in with her friend and started a beneficial relation with Yasser. It did not take a long time before Yasser made the white girl Brittany pregnant too. Before that, both girls were incredibly careful when they had sex with those Sudanese young men. Yasser took advantage of the small girl, and while she was fully drunk and drugged, he had sex with her without using a condom. When Brittany discovers that she is pregnant, her life is turned into hell. Her friend Kelly explained to her that at her age she would not be able to get an abortion without the police involvement. In such a case, the police might treat her pregnancy as kidnap and rape of a minor girl. Kelly asked Brittany to inform her parents. Brittany is reluctant to contact her parents. She said she would rather seek the help of the gang than her parents. The truth of the matter is that during that time Brittany's mother was in jail and her father was an abusive parent. The man she referred to him as her father is not her biological father. He is just the boyfriend of her mother. Brittany's mother did not know who impregnated her. When she was a young girl, she used to go to the bars and sleep with men. For that reason, she had no knowledge of who among those men she had sex with, who that man who had impregnated her and fathered her daughter Brittany. When she met her last boyfriend, she decided to live with him. She made her daughter believe that the man who is living with her is her father. The man's name is Robert Johnson. Brittany has been carrying his last name for many years, thinking that he is her real father. But Mr. Robert Johnson many times while he was drunk told Brittany that he wasn't her real father. Brittany always got hurt when she heard repeatedly that the man whom she thought is her father had always denied her as a daughter. Brittany's mother finally admitted that she had no idea who was the real father of her daughter. From that day onwards, Brittany began to treat Mr. Robert Johnson as her stepfather. Brittany's stepfather always harassed her sexually and many times beat her. When her mother went to jail, Mr. Robert Johnson began to rape her. Sometimes, he forced her to go to the streets and sleep with guys and get money for him. That abusive life finally led Brittany to run away from home and go to Calgary and join a gang. During her wandering days in the streets, she didn't find anyone to love her and take care of her. All those men who picked her up in their cars wanted nothing from her except her body. As soon as they were done with her, they just dumped her back in the streets as if she was not a human being that needed their parental love and care. When Brittany met Yasser, she found that he was willing to take care of her. She never loved him, but she loved his money and his readiness to meet her needs. But then when he deceived and impregnated her, he turned her life upside down. She doesn't know what to do or where to go to solve her pregnancy's insurmountable problem. At first, she thought some of her former gang members might help her. But Kelly warned her friend Brittany that if she went to the gang, they would beat and imprison her for running away from them. Finally, after all the doors were closed on her face, Brittany remembered the story that her mother told her about how she got her. When she shared that idea with Kelly, the two young friends liked it and thought it might work. According to that plan, Brittany should go to the hospital and ask for an abortion. If they asked her to tell them the name and address of the man who impregnated her, she should say that she was drunk when she was impregnated by a guy who picked her up from a bar and had car backseat sex with her. Therefore, she did not know the name of the man who picked her up that night. Brittany thought that way she could easily fool the hospital authority. When Brittany approached the hospital with that story, they did not believe her and immediately informed the police. The police took the matter seriously and asked Brittany many questions. They made her tell them about her parents. She also told them she used to stand in the streets and earn money in that way. The police came to know that she used to be part of a gang. The question that exposed Brittany was where she was when she got drunk and had sex with someone that she could not remember. At first, she said she was in a bar when someone picked her up. The police refused to believe that any bar could allow a minor girl to enter in. Then she lied to them by telling them that she was in her friend's apartment when she got drunk and slept with a stranger. The police asked her to give them her friend's name and address. She refused to reveal any information about her friend. Finally, the police asked her to tell them where she is living in Calgary. She gave them a fake address that does not exist in the city. When she refused to tell her address, the police decided to trick her. She is told to go without getting permission for an abortion. Then the police sent some policewomen in civilian dresses to follow her and find out where she is staying and with whom she is living. Chapter 19. The serious criminal charges. Yasser Saif Al-Dawla is 32 years old and completed 1 year in Canada when he impregnated Brittany. During this year, he did not do any work. When he came in the country, he depended on the money that he used to receive every month from the immigration authority. But when his wife Maria found a job, the government stopped supporting them. For some time, Yasser lived on the little cash that he received as pocket money from his working wife. When he developed those bad habits of drinking alcohol and smoking, he began to steal from his wife's apartment. Many times, his wife caught him stealing from her and threatened to kick him out if he did not stop stealing from her. The truth of the matter is that neither Maria loves Yasser nor Yasser loves Maria. It is a beneficial relationship. Maria needs a young, handsome man to satisfy her sexual needs, and Yasser needs someone to take care of him financially. For that reason, Maria could not throw Yasser out of her apartment, although she knew he was stealing from her. Moreover, she is aware that he is cheating on her with a white girl who is as small as his daughter. When Yasser met Brittany, he began to be in need of extra money. Brittany's addiction habits led him to come up with a new idea of getting more money. He knew that if he stopped supplying her needs, Brittany would leave him and go for someone else. Before he executed his plan, Yasser shared it with his Sudanese friend. Then he went to the social welfare office and lied to them that his wife kicked him out of the house, and now he is sharing an apartment with his friend. When the social welfare office contacted his friend, they could be able to verify his claim. The jobless Yasser began to receive a check every month from the welfare office. Yasser Saif Al-Dawla is taking seriously his relationship with Brittany. He told her that he was prepared to leave his wife and marry her. Brittany explained to him that a girl of her age is not allowed to get married in Canada. Yasser told her that he would take her to the Middle East and marry her. He assured her that in the Muslim countries the girl could marry even if she is 9 years old. Brittany considered his proposal to take her to the Middle East as a joke. Still, she told him she was prepared to accompany him everywhere he could take her. Yasser is extremely possessed by his love for Brittany. He is obsessed with her white color and young age. He did not believe that her age was a problem. He thought that Brittany did not want to make a commitment to marriage at that age. He concluded that she either scared of her parents that they might not agree for her to have a relation with a Muslim immigrant, or she might not want to marry a man who is 18 years older than her. He planned to force her to agree to marry him. To carry out his plan, he decided to impregnate her. Yasser still has that wicked idea in his mind that if he impregnated a girl, her parents would be obligated to marry her to him. He knew that Brittany would never allow him to have sex with her without using a condom. For that reason, one night he made her purposely overdrunk and drugged and had sex with her without the use of a condom. When Brittany discovered that she was pregnant, she did not share her discovery with Yasser. Even so, he suspected that he impregnated her and waited for her to come and beg him to marry her. Yasser knew he tried before to use the same plan with Natasha's parents, but it didn't work. But this time he had high hopes that his plan would work with Brittany. He knows that Brittany is not controlled by any parental authority, and there is no one to prevent her from marrying him if she decided to do so. He has in mind his plan of taking her to the Middle East or North Africa. He forged a marriage certificate in the Arabic language and made Brittany sign it without knowing what it is. He told her that it is a working permit he received from Saudi Arabia. He made her believe that he could take her with him to that country as a tourist. He assured her that as soon as they reached there, they could get married because the law in every Muslim country allows the girl to get married at any age. Although Yasser lived for 1 year in Canada, still he knows little about the laws of the country he is living in. Even though he heard that in Canada he would not be allowed to marry a 14-year-old girl, still he did not take seriously that restriction. He thought that he could bypass the law and take his underage white girl to the Middle East and marry her. While Yasser Saif Al-Dawla's mind is filled with those ideas and hopes, his great expectations are shattered one day when someone knocked on the door of the apartment of his friend. It was late evening when that unexpected visitor knocked on their door. At that time, Yasser has happened to be in bed with his dream girl and making love with her. He did not bother to respond to the door and left that task to his friend. That evening, Yasser Saif Al-Dawla is caught in bed and in the very act of having sexual intercourse with a 14-year-old girl. For police officers have seen him raping the minor girl, Brittany Johnson. At first, Yasser thought the police officers came to search the apartment for drugs. The reaction of Brittany alarmed him and made him believe that the police officers came for something more serious than drugs. Brittany began to cry and beg the officers to spare her. When he saw his sex partner is crying, Yasser got frightened, confused, and began to speak to the police officers in the Arabic language. The police ignored him and began to search the apartment. After a long search, the police found alcohol bottles, cigarettes, and drugs. The police found in Yasser's bag an Islamic marriage certificate in the Arabic language. Later, when the certificate was translated into English, it appeared that it included the name of Yasser Seif Al-Dawla as the husband and Brittany Johnson as his wife. That evening, Yasser Seif Al-Dawla was arrested under awfully serious charges. He is arrested for kidnapping, imprisoning, raping, and impregnating an underage girl who is 14 years old. He is charged with providing and supplying alcohol, tobacco, and drugs to a minor girl. His Sudanese friend and his white girlfriend have been placed under arrest too. But when the age of Kelly has been verified, she and her boyfriend are released on the same evening. It appeared that Kelly was lying about her age. The police found out that her actual age is 18 and not 16, as she told her boyfriend. Brittany is detained by the police authority as a victim rather than a suspect. When her minor age has been confirmed, her case has been transferred to the social work department. Later, the social work department put her in a foster home and allowed the question of her abortion to be decided by her new caretakers. Her new foster parents decided to give her permission to abort the baby due to her age. Then they encouraged her to return to school and resume her education. In the meantime, the second arrest of Yasser Seif Al-Dawla with those serious charges is met with shock by both Sudanese communities in Calgary. When his wife Maria heard the disturbing news, she wished the earth would open and swallow her forever. She did not only feel she had been cheated upon by her unfaithful husband, but he betrayed her community too. Other Sudanese women kept on calling her phone and inquiring about the authenticity of the news. Some of them came and knocked on her door, but she did not respond to any caller or knocker. Maria stopped going even to her work. When all the measures she took did not shield her from those curious women, Maria fled with her daughter to Edmonton City and hid in the house of her cousin sister. In her hiding place, Maria cried a lot for her husband. She did not cry because she loved or missed him, but she cried for the future of her daughter. How could she tell her daughter when she becomes mature up that her father was arrested as a child abuser and rapist? This time, the African Southern Sudanese Association decided not to interfere in the case of that Muslim Arab Sudanese who is a sex fiend. The Arab Muslim Northern Sudanese Association appointed a lawyer to defend the case of Yasser Seif Al-Dawla. The lawyer is originally a Syrian immigrant who became a Canadian citizen. He is an Arab and Muslim too. Dr. Noor Al-Huda informed the lawyer to convince Yasser to change his statement. He should say that the girl lied to him about her real age. The retired professor Noor Al-Huda had already heard from Yasser's friend that the other girl, Kelly, lied to him about her age. But if the police would not allow Yasser to alter his statement, Dr. Noor Al-Huda told the lawyer to defend him on the ground that he is a new immigrant and did not know that the law in Canada forbids a grown-up man to have sex with a 14-year-old girl. As the president of the Muslim Arab Sudanese Association, the ex-professor Noor Al-Huda felt that it is his duty to defend a Muslim and Arab Sudanese, and especially that person is his son-in-law, and his daughter had 2 children from him. Once again, he wants to play that controversial issue of Sharia laws versus Western laws. Chapter 20. The past criminal record of Yasser. The police of Calgary pulled out the previous charges that had been laid upon Yasser Seif Al-Dawla when he was arrested for the first time and added them to the new charges. According to his criminal record, 13 Canadian women lodged complaints of sexual harassment against him. Some of those complainers are even girls under the age of 16. All 13 victims are white women. The police of Calgary concluded that sexual predator is targeting women of white skin. But due to the intervention of the Immigration Office and the Sudanese community, Yasser Seif Al-Dawla was not prosecuted on those previous offenses. When such information leaked to the media, it created a social uproar. Many social workers and journalists blamed the police department for waiving those previous charges and releasing such a habitual sexual offender. Also, some social workers informed the media that Yasser Saif al-Dawla arrived in Canada with 2 wives, but the police of Calgary kicked one of the 2 women out of the country while she was carrying his second baby in her womb. Such new information made the case of Yasser to be of great interest. Some journalists requested the immigration office to give them permission to have access to Yasser's case that led him to immigrate to Canada as a refugee. The immigration officials refused to allow any access to his file because such information is held in high confidentiality for the protection of the immigrant's privacy. The journalists rejected such an argument on the ground that the immigration office had already allowed the RCMP to investigate the file of the South African medical doctor who was charged with serious sexual offenses. Moreover, there were many cases of immigrant refugees who were accused of terrorist plots, and the RCMP had access to their records with the immigration office. When the media put pressure on the immigration office, the seal of Yasser Saif al-Dawla's file is broken, and the reason for his immigration from Egypt to Canada became public knowledge. It appeared that Yasser is wanted in Sudan for similar offenses. To protect him from being extradited from Cairo to Khartoum and get stoned to death by the Islamic Sharia court in Sudan, the UN office in Egypt requested the Canadian embassy to fly him over to Canada within 6 days. Some curious journalists did not stop at that but flew over to Sudan and obtained more serious information than what was mentioned in Yasser's immigration file. Those journalists know any sexual crime involved 2 persons, the sexual offender and the victim. So, since Yasser's file did not include the victim, those journalists traveled to Sudan to find out who was that victim and what had happened to her. The information that they brought back with them turned the city of Calgary upside down and made everyone to raise a red flag against the UN office, the Canadian embassy, and the immigration authority. The information revealed that Yasser Saif al-Dawla had impregnated a Sudanese girl out of wedlock when she was 14 years old, and he was 28. When that girl became 16 years, he impregnated her again without marrying her. After the second pregnancy, the girl was arrested by the Khartoum police. The reason for her arrest had to do with honor killing. The girl is known as Natasha. She is having a Sudanese father by the name of Sami Shams al-Din and a Russian mother called Nadia Alexandrov. When Natasha was impregnated by Yasser for the second time, her father's relatives tried to murder her for disgracing the name of their family. Instead of killing her, they murdered her Russian mother who came in between and saved the life of her daughter. Yasser Saif al-Dawla somehow was able to flee to Egypt with his third wife, Maria. In Egypt, they became refugees. At that time, Yasser was married to 3 wives at the same time and fathered children with all 3 women. In addition to that, he impregnated a girl who wasn't his wife. The impregnated girl was arrested and charged with committing adultery without marriage and delivering 2 illegitimate babies. According to the Islamic Sharia law, an adulterer should be given 100 stripes if he was unmarried and stoned to death if he was married to another person at the time he committed adultery. Yasser Saif al-Dawla came to know through the media that he would be stoned to death if the Egyptian police arrested him and extradited him to his country of origin. To escape that gruesome penalty, Yasser approached the UN office and informed them about his life threat. To save his life, the UN office requested the Canadian embassy to fly Yasser and his wife Maria out of Egypt as soon as possible. In that way, Yasser escaped and left that poor girl to face the consequence of his evil act. The Sharia court in Khartoum tried the girl and found her guilty of committing adultery and becoming pregnant twice out of wedlock. For that reason, her punishment was doubled. She was sentenced to 200 lashes. The Sharia court's ruling was based on the commandment of the Quran, in Surah Al-Nur, verse 2, which says, "The woman and the man guilty of adultery, flog each of them with 100 stripes. Let not compassion move you in their case. In a matter prescribed by Allah, if you believe in Allah and the last day, and let a party of the believers witness their punishment. Surah Al-Nur 24, verse 2. Accordingly, after the indicted girl delivered Yasser's second bastard baby, the Islamic court ordered her to be whipped 200 lashes. Although the poor girl died before the two executioners finished half of that cruel punishment, still the lifeless body of the girl was not spared until the 200 stripes were completed on her dead body. The journalists obtained that information from the Human Rights Watch office in Juba. The Khartoum police refused to cooperate with the Canadian journalists and did not allow them to have access to Yasser Seif al-Dawlah's criminal record in Sudan. Through the help of the Human Rights Watch office, the journalists could be able to meet with Yasser's other two wives, Badriya Habib Allah and Duriya Noor al-Huda, and interview them. Both women admitted that they are still the lawful wives of Yasser. From each woman, Yasser has fathered 2 daughters. The 2 women said that they are not receiving any child support from Yasser, and for living they and their children depend on their parents. The Canadian journalists tried to find out what had happened to the so-called illegitimate baby that the condemned and executed girl delivered before the Sharia court flogged her to death. The Human Rights Watch office informed them that the baby and her grandfather left their country and immigrated to Ethiopia and settled in Addis Ababa. No one ever heard anything about them after they left Sudan. Yasser Seif al-Dawlah's past criminal record revealed that he caused the destruction of a family, which resulted in the cruel execution of his victim and the brutal murder of his victim's mother. After the past record of Yasser became public, a persisting question bothered all the governmental departments, including the police department and the immigration office. Should a person with serious criminal records such as Yasser Seif al-Dawlah be allowed to immigrate to Canada for his protection? Although the Canadian embassy in Cairo had full knowledge of Yasser's sexual offenses in Sudan, still it granted him resettlement for his protection purpose. By bringing such a child abuser, the government of Canada endangered public safety. If such a serious error had not taken place, Brittany Johnson would not have fallen prey to the hands of such a sexual predator. Yet, another question that needs an answer is to do with the safety of Yasser himself. When the court finds him guilty of all those serious charges, will it deport him back to his country or imprison him in Canada? If he is deported to Sudan, he will be stoned to death by the Islamic Sharia court in Khartoum. If he is jailed in Canada, he will continue to remain a public risk after his release. No one could give answers to those questions, and for the time being, the matter is left for the judge and his jury to decide upon.